Itagat kokeny yekitesetai ko kachut betutab aeng eng betuni bo rani interviews chekeyochin biik 11 chemeche kelewen koek nebo ng'echeret eng kibagengeitab lewenisiet nebo Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission IEBC. Atestai koek netai ketebse Erastus Ethekon eng saisiek chebo karon ako kaisup Francis Kaikai Kissinger netesetai ketebse nguno ko yeibata noto kotetat ketebse Jacob Ngwele Muvengei akoek nebo let eng betuni Joy Mdivo. Ite ilet interviews choto eng betutab komut kasi kotomo ketoi ketebse biik chotok chekosom boroinwek chebo commissioners
and operate together with the Register of Political Parties, because the Register of Political Parties is the one that's appointing them. But at the same time, the IEBC at the same time is supposed to be, they have very strict guidelines on how those political parties are supposed to behave, how they're supposed to deal with. You look at the Political Parties Act, if they're supposed to comply with those regulations and the rules under the Political Parties Act to ensure that they comply with the law.
Does the IBC have any obligation to supervise the political parties' nominations?
Yes, it has.
Tell us more about that.
It takes me back to the question that I was saying, the interplay between the political parties, liaison committee, the IEBC, and the Office of the Register of Political Parties. So the IEBC will comes up with rules to ensure that the political parties comply with those rules in terms of nomination, the rules for nomination. And if you fail to comply with those rules of nomination, then there are consequences to that.
Okay, so again, another area related to that is on the campaigning financing. There is no law currently in Kenya that guides the financing of campaigns. So what would you propose to be measures that can be undertaken by ABC to regulate that area?
Thank you for that question. The campaigns finance, there's a campaigns finance law. It's called the Campaign Finance Act of 2013. What happened is that when that act came in place, the law was silent. Who comes up with what we call regulations? So we have the act in place and a detailed law, but we do not have regulations that support that act. This matter has been litigated, for your information, and there are several courts that have opined on this issue. And the courts have said that you do not need Parliament to enact regulations. So the solution, and it will always be a problem in Kenya, we are going into election in the next 2 years, it will be a problem. The solution to this, if you remember what I said, simplicity, is to allow IEBC to do its work, and IEBC to come up with regulations on finance campaign, which will supplement the Finance Campaign Act of 2013.
Who should allow? Is to allow.
The law.
Who should allow?
Chair, the law allows IEBC to come up with finance regulations. So IEBC has to do its work. It's only through that that you will have an election that is contested fairly, because finances is an important thing in elections. Thank you.
So if you have looked at the 2022 post-election review report, it has identified some of the significant challenges that exist in the conduct of party primaries in regard to transparency and fairness. Now, should you be successful and you become the chairperson of the IBC, what specific measures would you propose that would be put in place by the IBC to enhance the integrity and credibility of the nomination process for parties?
I think, thank you for that question. The simple answer comes to one, serious stakeholder engagement of those political parties, IEBC, PPLC, ORP, first thing. Number two is to look at the nomination rules that exist and identify various gaps that are there to enhance electoral process. And when you are looking at these nomination rules, you must ask yourself whether those nomination rules speak to the spirit of the Constitution. What is required in the Constitution for nomination, what is expected of the Constitution in terms of nomination, the outlook, and whether those rules speak to the Constitution and the spirit of the law. Those are the tangible things that I will have to deal with.
Maybe your views. We use technology in voting. What would you propose? Like, what do you think should happen? Can we promote the use of technology in party nominations?
Thank you. We have KIMS kit. And this KIMS kit starts all the way from registration, voting, all through to candidates, and then the transmission of results. So it's a comprehensive system. Now, the use of technology is something that we must continue aspiring to do. And we need to come up with a new platform or a new portal or a new system to ensure that even the technology is used during the party primaries. Because even we are looking, and I'm a student who says that even we need to be moving to have technology doing the AI technology. Well, voters, how do you reach out to these voters and you don't have money for voter education because countries never fund for voter education? Can we harness that to use AI? We've seen AI doing very well in India and doing very well in the US. So technology, there will never be a deficiency of using technology in an electoral process. And technology answers that question of how simple is that election.
All right, thank you. And lastly from me, what should you become successful, what would be your vision for the use of ICT and basically modernizing the electoral system in Kenya for the next 10 years, 5 years? You can take us gradually, 5 years, 10 years. What is your vision? What do you think the ICT should look like?
We must start by priding ourselves as Kenyans for having an ICT platform in an electoral process. So where we are okay. What we need to do, and my vision will be, what are these other IT platforms or IT-related ideas that we can add to the election to make it more transparent, to make it easy, and to make it accessible to everybody. For example, why can't we have IT being incorporated in voter education? Why can't IBC come up with IT in voter education? We focused more on result transmission. And most of the energies for Kenyans were focused on results transmission, and particularly the presidential. But we left a lot of IT space. So we can have that. Technology doesn't just mean the computer. It also means social media, any other facilities that are using technology, Twitter, X, Facebook. How can we use these things to ensure that IEBC is 100% IT friendly? And these are some of the things that will be my vision to ensure that from the button of your phone, you can ask a question, for example, what is the name of my polling station? That's use of technology. And it will come and tell you your polling station is this. How do we enhance that? If you want to know about your civic rights or your voter rights, it should be at the palm of your hand. So we can encompass these things and enlarge the IT scale in terms of election management and observation, and in terms of election preparedness throughout the electoral cycle.
So as a last follow-up question, then what would be the use of technology in detecting and preventing electoral malpractices?
Thank you. The electoral malpractices are many. and the law establishes them. And one of the electoral malpractice is misinformation or disinformation, for example, because there's so much that goes out there which is not true information about really what's happening. So depending on the IT expertise that will be there and depending on the program itself, then it should be able to detect and block that which one thinks is a problem. If there's a misinformation coming in, for example, you can have, before the election, you can have an information like, oh, a certain candidate has died, and therefore there will be no election there. And so that will depress the person who is coming to vote. So can we have a system, and that's entirely within the ICT department of the IEBC, that now tries to sieve and say this is not true, and the only true information reaches out to the voter. So IT is something that is expensive, though, to have IT systems in place, but I think it's a worthwhile cost.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kissinger. I wish you the best, and thank you so much, Chairman.
Thank you. Allow me to ask Dr. Koki Muli to also engage you some questions.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, and good afternoon, Kakai, and it's truly nice to see you. I actually had forgotten that we had offered you a job, but I'm really happy, as we kept on saying then, and we keep on saying here now, it's actually about the country, and any contribution that we make towards democratization process is contribution towards value addition to the process. So I'm very happy that you actually, I remember the conversation around whether to work for IEBC or not, the election management body. At the time, it used to be better than now. And therefore, we are actually quite happy that you could be as one of the applicants to be here to be interviewed for the position of chair. So karibu sana. I wanted to put you at rest and also to tell you that you have mentioned that you managed 8 elections, e.g. in Uganda, in Zambia. I wanted to know exactly what you did with the EMBs to manage the processes, and also for how long was this assignment?
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Koki, for that question. One of the main responsibility of a coordinator of elections, whether you are hired by the African Union, by the East African Community, or the Kass Center, or any other observer group missions, your work is to pitch camp at the EMB. Your work is to carry the electoral cycle with you and tell that EMB, this is the electoral cycle that you are supposed to respect, that you are supposed to adhere to, with the view of having a credible election. You camp there. You then start evaluating as a role each step of that electoral cycle. Did that EMB, election management body, miss anything on voter registration? Did it miss anything on candidate registration? Did it miss anything on campaign finance and campaign issues? Did it miss anything on voter education? If it did, you then identify those issues that were missed, and those issues form your recommendation. As I said, my responsibility was to come up with a mission report, and therefore it forms your recommendation to help that EMB manage future elections in a better and transparent manner. You also, as a responsibility, give them guidance, advice of where you think they ought to improve. You check them. We call it checkmate. You check them. You also warn them that don't go that direction, go this direction, because the law allows you to do that. Finally, it was my responsibility to read the entire constitution of each of those countries you are in at a given time, and to read the entire legal framework in those countries, and then advise them based on the legal framework. So that was basically the responsibility.
Thank you very much, Kakai. You also, you mentioned to us that you are also bringing in some skills in reforms. We are very concerned, of course, about the perennial problems we have, the challenges we experience every election year. There are always problems associated with acceptance of election results or challenge of the same, especially presidential elections since the 2010 constitution. We want to have a rebirth, to have a country where the election management body, i.e. the IEBC, that if you are successful, you will chair, must midwife a transformative process that gives us election results that are accepted by all contestants, and that within a peaceful environment where the election is professionally conducted and so on and so forth. So if you are successful in this position, there will be a lot of work that requires to be done to achieve what I've just said. So with those transformative and reforms skills that you are bringing in, identify for the panel the 3 priority challenges that face the electoral democracy environment in Kenya, or that the 3 challenges that the IEBC faces in advancing its work. Just 3 challenges, and then outline for us how you prioritize them and how you will address them to give Kenya that dream destination I've just described. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Koki. One of the biggest challenges from where I sit will be you have so many gaps in the law. And those gaps have been taken care of by judicial decisions, but those gaps have not found themselves in legislation. That's a very big challenge for the IEBC in terms of reforms. How do we deal with these gaps? Are they doable within the shortest period of time? Is it something that will go into the next election with these legal gaps? I'll give an example on the greatest reform challenges we have. We are lucky that we have the Elections Act, which is, I think, over-legislated. But we have a constitutional challenge that we'll have to deal with as we go toward the next election. How do we deal with the issue of boundary review and delimitation? We all know that the timelines has expired. That's a very hot potato in the room. How are we going to deal with this? The issues of protected constituencies. So that's one of the biggest things that we have to look into. As we deal with the reforms, we also have to ask ourselves, how are we dealing with the issue of credibility as a big challenge for IEBC? We, year in, year out, we are told that the institution is not credible for good or for bad reasons, for known or unknown reasons. You are going into another election. You have 2 years to election. As chair, if I'm lucky, how will I enhance and ensure that that issue of credibility is dealt with? Because it all begins with the issue of credibility. what advantages do I do, what do I do to go about it, and how do I bring stakeholders in place to deal with it. Finally, the other challenge I foresee in terms of this is the lack of IBC Act. The lack of IBC Act Section 18 allows the formation of the IBC fund. We don't have it, and the IBC fund will have been good to ensure that those monies that are not coming from the exchequer are acquired from other development partners to enhance the electoral process. So those are some of the issues that I can touch on, and I've tried to say how I can deal with them in terms of reform and in terms of lobbying and negotiating with relevant institutions to ensure that there's proper legislation and things take place for the purpose of having a credible election.
Thank you very much, Kakai. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much. Allow me to ask FCPA Tanui to also ask some questions.
Thank you, Chair, and welcome, Bwana Kakai. Now, let me start. I was looking at your documents, and I saw that at some point at the judiciary, you are the accounting officer. What circumstances are under, at what point did you become an accounting officer for the judiciary?
My substantive position at the judiciary was a deputy chief registrar. But at some point, or at some time, the then chief registrar exited. And as they were seeking for a replacement, an institution, any institution in this country, will always have a temporary person as an acting accounting officer. And therefore you are limited. The terms of reference are, you are not a full accounting officer, your terms are just limited for holding the position. So you don't incur anything. You don't approve any payment. You only spend what was approved by the former accounting officer. So it's an interim measure which is normally put in government to ensure that there's no vacuum. So it was for a very short period of time without the authority to incur.
Now, with that experience of being an accounting officer, you will note that other than Teacher Service Commission, the other constitutional commission that has the highest allocation of funding is actually IEBC. So what would be your role as a chairperson of IEBC with regard to management of financial resources of the electoral management body?
Thank you. If I happen to be the chair, I hope I will, of IEBC, my responsibility is not that of an accounting officer, because IEBC, being an independent institution, has a CEO. The work of a CEO is basically the accounting officer. My responsibility as chair will be oversight. You oversight the operations of the CEO or the secretariat. My responsibility will be policy. You form and come up with the policies with the help of the other commissioners, and you do that. The only issue that the chair has in terms of controlling the accounting officer is if you look at the corporate governance of IEBC, which happens to every other institution, is you have a commissioner from for example, IEBC, you have 6 commissioners. You have a commissioner sitting in various committees so you have 6, IEBC I think has 9 committees, HR, IT, and audit and the rest. So you will have a commissioner sitting there. It is that commissioner who will be sitting as a member who will give you briefs in terms of corporate governance and accountability mechanisms that are enshrined on the CEO. So the chair only receives it at plenary, those reports, but you are not involved at all with the day-to-day operation in terms of an accounting officer. The only part you get involved is when probably the accounting officer briefs you and tells you we need to go to Bunge and push for more funds, we need to go to this and lobby for more money, we need to have these development partners who are coming in to give us funds, but you'll have policy briefs in terms of your role. So your role as chair, you restrict yourself to your lane to avoid unnecessary squabbles within the institution.
Now, following it up or down, because you've said as a chair there will be a commissioner responsible for finances and reporting.
Sitting as a committee in that committee.
Sitting in the committee, and I would assume they should be like the finance committee. And I think there are 7 committees at IBC.
Correct.
So there will be a commissioner. So what will be the role of this commissioner in this specific committee?
Natako vetting netesetai keyachin biik chotok chemeche keleweni ko agenge eng icheket koek chairman noton nebo IEBC. Kibendi county noton nebo Bomet. Ole kakesom chemung'arainik kobun county noton nebo Bomet koker kole kaboisie boroindo noton konyor county nebo Bomet nebo keyae ureriet nebo labatet chebo regional chebo junior secondary school konyorune kelchin anan kokanapta mung'arenywa. Kamwa nebo ng'echeret eng Chamber of Commerce mornetab Bomet Leonard Langat kole nito ko boroindo ne inegei eng chemung'arainik koboisie boroinoto kosuldae mung'arenywa. Kibendi kenyoru agenge eng agenge sirindenyo Festus Arono asikomwoiwech kit netesetai eng county notok bo Bomet.
Kongoi missing Karoche sang en miten studio sechok en Nairobi. Amiten en olmari chok choton chebo Bomet ko anke ngaman ko en wikini kongeten betut noton nebo mutai ko bwone timisiek alan bwone counties choton 14 ko komosta noton bo Rift Valley ko bwone icheket ko urereni ureriet ne inegen anan labatet ne inegen noton nebo regionals chebo junior secondary schools che bwone icheket en taoniton bo Bomet asikomuch koker kele kaisuldaen noton en oret noton neititaat. Ak kemiten nguni ak nebo ng'echeret en Chamber of Commerce noton mornet nebo Bomet inendet ko Leonard Langat ne naat en kainet ko Lalet noton en icheket nguni bwat chitab kolenjin ile niton ko koib mokornotet anan kaib kanyokokanapta mung'aret noton nebo county niton nebo Bomet noton kole kochang toek kimwa chi kole ngobwa toek kobwone konyone kosobe nebo gaa. So noton kemiten ak chemung'araindet noton ne naat missing ko Lalet. Namas kwarore kityo akobo tetutik chekokopangan chemung'arainik en taoniton nebo Bomet ak tuguk alak chetesetai en taoniton nebo keker kele kanyor kelchin kora chitab Bomet anan chemung'araindet noton nemiten en county nebo Bomet. Amatach inendet noton ko Lalet sikwarorwech akobo tetutik ak makutik chemokyingei icheket asikeker kele kakinapta mung'aret. Itakat en Kass TV en Kass Mashinani. Ng'ololwech akobo mung'aret ne nguni kokabwa biik chechang kobob counties cheterter en Rift Valley ako kimong'u kele wendi kokonoptokse mung'areng'wong. Tos kimwochin ine chemung'arainik en nguni?
Netai anendet ko chairman Leonard Langat nebo Bomet. Ko amache amwa ale ortinwek tugul kobwone kokere Bomet ketoche counties chenekit 14 cheyobu Rift Valley tugul ko en kong'eten karon en kastab ang'wan ketindoi ng'waek chekororon missing chemiten Bomenyon. Ako en ireu ketindoi athletics chebo bikyok chebo Rift Valley chekingen kora kele obokora ko bikyok kobo ng'waek. Ko kimoe keboisien ng'waechuton any biikab biashara keker kele kakisich ne kakinde ne makubet karon. Karon kobendi toechu kokabokokune. Ko kit noton nekomoche ahimisan en betut nebo raini atai korok toek chebwone tugul alenjo bwan Bomet ko kararan, Bomet komi security ne kararan, kiboisiei tugul ak county government komie, kiboisiei ak polisiek komie, ko security ko ensured en Bomet. Ko onubwone kemoe kesomo kora toek tugul obwane ak osoite oker ng'waek ak mbiret nemiten en betusiek choton somok ak koru amisie kora en Bomet en nyigisindo ak nesibu amache kora oruche kora Bomet Makimae taek chebwane Bomet akor kobore kekas ko karuyo olimbo Kericho. Yon kakibwan Bomet ongebwan Bomet akikoi mung'aret biikab Bomet. Amun Tumbesyo komiten athletics cheu chuton counties alak. So amache atach biik tugul chebwane Rift Valley ole akotokotin kenyokeker ng'waek on sire amache aimisan kora wafanyabiashara tugul chebo Bomet oker ole kabwa toek ako toechu komache kebai, mache ele rue, mache tuguk chekororon ak security ne kararan. So kimache kesomok biik tugul cheyoe biashara kong'eten olimbo resop obwan oibu amitwogik chongen ole ame biik kyok kong'eten en olimbo kiwanjet longere ng'waek. So kesomok obwan ak amitwogik o biikab taon ak ichek amache ostoken tuguk chekororon chemuche koboisien toek en karon akoi oin akoi Jumamos oker ole kor kobendi toechu ko kaonyoru biashara ne kararan. Nebo oeng amache I want to talk to the police commandant and the police in particular to ensure security is fulfilled here in Bomet during those days, especially during the night, so that we ensure the security of our people, because these games are there up to very late in the evening. So we want the commandant to be very vigilant with his team, and even to ensure the traffic is well organized here in Bomet. At the same time, we also want to tell the government to ensure that we have got everything, especially water, during those days, so that we don't have our visitors getting a lot of problems in case of water. But for drinking water, we want to emphasize the business people to take the bottled water to the field and wherever these people are playing, so that you also make business at the end of the day. And the county government, we also need to keep the county clean. We don't want our visitors to come here and say that the Bomet is very, very dirty or not organized. Starting from the commandant, county commissioner, we want to sit together as we have been sitting, so that we ensure that all these things goes very well during those days. So kisome kora meng'ikab Bomet matote biga ichechu ko ng'waek chekororon kora chekikere kele ibe kora taa lagokyok yon kakonai ng'waechu. Kibendi loochu akoi bitonin akonyor kasisiek akoib kora malik kobwa oliep gaa. So ko tuguchonito chekimwoe ako kimache keker kele kobwan tugul, so kochi kora motisha lagochuton singorwoe kokere kole miten sigik ireu, sikoron kora kesomchinoti koba olimbo bitonin kongen kole kimi tugul kibagenge akoba koset komie akowek akoibwech rabinik kobwa Bomet.
Kongoi missing ak ole kimiten tugul kibagenge en kokatoge boisioniton nebo labatet ak chemung'arainik. Kobaten amache akochi kityo rubeiwondeng'ung noton ko Cheruiyot Lang'at simwa akinye ng'olyon en county niton bo Bomet ko iker en wikisiek chekokosirto kole komiten uritiet neo kot missing en olmorichok choton chebo Bomet. Mongen ole imwochin ine serikalit nebo county nebo koker kole kakiib lights anan kakiib loboyet konyo taonitab Bomet en kasariton bo labatet.
Kongoi missing Festus. Koin kongoi kainenyu ko Lang'at Cheruiyot ako amwa kityo atesyi kit nekamwa chairman Chamber of Commerce en ng'alekab preparation chebo ng'alechu bo ng'waek ak toek ko first kotokotin toek en Bomet. Bomet ko emet nekararan, environment ko kararan, kitinye koristo nemie ako kitindoi beautiful scenes, kitindoi okot kou tenwek, waterfalls and many other things. Ko yon mi toek kora Bomet ko they are free to move around akobendat koker kole ne kit nekitinye en Bomet, opportunities chekitinye ko ne. Lakini konam ko ng'alekab koron amache asom kityo serikalit nemi nebo Bomet through the department nebo energy, tourism ak trade koker kole konde taisiek kobois amun en inguni keng'olole ko urot taonini en kemo. So amache asom amun lagok chebwone korwoe anan kochesoni ko takomengech ak ketinye toek chemoroisi kongen kolonono. So kemoche elelaba asikobit konyor services, konyor hotelisiek, konyor tuguk cheole en tukosiek. So nan asom serikalit ine ole korekebishan taisiek cho komait koron. Somenyun ko nondo amun makimuch keyai biashara en ele uro ako security non kakisom komatot komukak kora komie ne yo urot emet. So nan asom kinam taisiek en all streets en Bomet ak environs chebo Bomet asikomyeit koroni ko anibu komatinye ng'alalak kongoi mising tokotin toek en Bomet.
Mising chesa koro ichop ngo kityo minitit agenge kityo kong'ololwe chemung'oroindet ne naat mising ko Kipsang en taonito nebo Bomet. Amache imwa inye ng'olyot ochobotin otach kiprutoinik.
Netai koron ko koinutikyuk ko Dr. Wilson Kipsang Rob, chemung'oroindet nebo Bomet. Nebo oeng amache awekyi kongoi Ministry nebo Education en tekisto neo nekokonech akolewenech keikun center nebo regional. Niton kokonech opportunity asikobit kiimproven biashara nenyonet. Amache amwa ale kichobotin ako tokotin toek. Kit ne amache asom kityo ko amache asom Bomasco kokimit koker kole kachang'a beek en betusiek choton ak ng'alekab sewer system kora koker kole chobotin komie ak lights chon kakomwa wafanya biashara mwenzangu. Kinibuchi tokotin toek ako awekyini kongoi ministry amun kolewenech toku kele tinye kayanet en Bomet. Ako magi underestimate the role sports koyoe en curriculum nebo lagok is an integral part of the curriculum. Kongoi mising.
Kongoi mising. Chesa karo choton ko chemung'arainik kondochin inendet nebo kecheret en Chamber of Commerce en county nebo Bomet. Nekaikas komwa kole tokotin toek koab counties choton 14 chetetat kobwa lagok alak kipsomaninik choton chebo junior secondary nyokoureren alak kolabat en ureriet noton nekokitet nebo regionals en county niton Bomet anan en region noton nebo Rift Valley. Ko chesa karo ko choton logoiwek chetesetai kisubi ako ng'eten en betutab mutai ketesetai kisubi niton en koindo akoi kowongei en betut noton nebo Jumamos anan weekend niton bo kitokyinigei. Kong'eten county nebo Bomet aweku soet kuro Festus Rono kong'eten county nebo Bomet.
Kongoi mising Festus Rono kong'etegei county nebo Bomet. Chitab Kalenjin kibendi kenyoru logoiwek kitigin asiyekiwege kenyoru logoiwekab emet. Meloitu.